Hello, everybody. Scott G, Life Coach here. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. We're not here as often as we used to be. We're going to work on that in the year 2023. But regardless, this is kind of looking at overthinking, the concept of overthinking and the things to do to kind of cut down on that as a concept a little bit. It's certainly not something necessarily that you have to do a lot of, but a lot of people do it. Obviously, the desire for control is the root cause of most overthinking. That is the desire to be. We prefer for them to go, and it's ultimately not necessarily a good thing. It's ultimately not necessarily a thing that we need to do on a consistent basis, but certainly something that ultimately we can look at. So what do you do when you have a pattern of overthinking? One of the first things that needs to be done is to identify the pattern and to acknowledge the pattern exists. That can be a really simple thing to do. It can also be somewhat frustrating because if you're not ready to admit that you have the pattern, then obviously you're not going to be able to break it. Admitting it doesn't mean being powerless to it. It also doesn't mean necessarily being in a situation where you have to be completely owned by the process of overthinking. Instead, you can acknowledge that it exists, but then work on it and acknowledge it and hold yourself accountable to it. The next thing to look at there is to distract yourself from the process of overthinking. When you find yourself in the process of overthinking, trying to create as many distractions and or diversions as possible to get out of thought loops is important. When you realize you're in a thought loop, your first thought should be or can be, what can I do to create another option for the change that I want in my life right now? Whether that change be I want to change what I'm focused on. I want to change how I'm moving through certain relationships. I want to change how active I am physically or emotionally. I want to change what I'm thinking about. I want to change how I feel about myself in the emotional core. All of those things should be, when you find yourself in a loop, creating the distractions to allow that to happen. Also, becoming more solution focused is important. That is the thought of what can I change or alter right now that gives me a chance at a better future or a better do want. The present moment mindedness of realizing that changes happen in the moment is important. And so understand that we get the result of our focus. We get the result of what we continue to focus on. So if you're constantly in the same pattern, if you're constantly in the same place of changing your focus, I mean, you can't ultimately get to a better place within yourself in other methods, but sometimes something as simple as a couple of minutes of reprioritizing and creating different priority can be a huge difference in the way that you see the world, but also in the way that the world relates to you. Remember, your relationship with the world around you is directly correlated to your ability to believe that you can make better solutions for yourself and create things for you as a person that are going to lead you in a direction that go somewhere where you can make better decisions longer term and ultimately get to a place where life becomes easier to manage and simpler to identify. Solutions don't always planned solution or thing that really does matter for you. Sometimes a solution can be particular thing that I'm looking at in order to create the desire for positive change and the things that I need most in my life so that I can create an opportunity to be the person that I want to be going forward. Sometimes people begin to understand or not understand their own value in the relationship to the things that they need to change about themselves more often because they think they've already missed that window. Realize and recognize that, in fact, changes happen when we see ourselves as capable of doing the things we need to do rather than identifying ourselves as not having done enough or not being enough. When we see ourselves as not enough, when we see ourselves as less than, it becomes extremely difficult to try to identify the ways that we can focus our own energy on the changes that we want or need without the realization of the continual identity of kind of creating the life we want. So there are opportunities to make continual changes. We just have to be focused on identifying where we want to be and how we believe we can co-create getting there continually. And so hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you to keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.